The Murder Club. My name is James Donovan, and I've always been the kind of guy who tries to keep his life simple. I'm 17 years old, just a regular high school student. I'm not particularly special in any way, just trying to make it through school like everyone else. I hang out with my group of friends, do my homework most of the time, and play a bit of football when I feel like it. Life was pretty much on autopilot for me until the day I stumbled into something that would change everything. That's the day I met the people who would introduce me to a world of secrets, games, and something much darker than I ever imagined. It all started with an invitation. An invitation to join the murder club. It sounds crazy, I know. I thought so too. But when you're 17 and life feels a bit too boring, sometimes you say yes to things you shouldn't. Chapter 1: The Invitation. I remember it was a typical Wednesday. School had been dragging on like it always did, with teachers droning on about math formulas and history dates. I was staring out of the window in English class, half listening to the lesson, when a small folded note was slipped onto my desk. I looked around, but no one seemed to notice. Curious, I unfolded the note. Meet us behind the gym after school. It's time you knew the truth about everything. There was no name, no signature, just those cryptic words. For the rest of the day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Who sent the note? What truth were they talking about? My life wasn't exactly full of mysteries. So the idea of something secret happening in my boring little world felt almost exciting. Almost. When the final bell rang, I grabbed my backpack and made my way to the back of the gym. I wasn't even sure if anyone would show up, but I had nothing better to do. And that's when I saw them. They stood in a small circle, leaning against the wall like they owned the place. There were 5 of them, all wearing expensive clothes and looking like they had walked straight out of some teen drama show. At the center of the group was Davina. Everyone at school knew who she was. She was the queen bee, the girl everyone wanted to be or be with. 16 years old, pretty, pouty, and preppy, Davina embodied every stereotype of the popular girl. But there was something about her that set her apart. Something darker. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, seemed to see right through you. She noticed me before I even had a chance to introduce myself. James, right? She asked, her voice smooth and sweet like honey, but with an edge to it that made me nervous. Oh, yeah, I replied, trying to sound casual. She smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. Welcome to the murder club. Chapter 2: What is the murder club? The words murder club sent a shiver down my spine. I almost laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. But the way they were all looking at me, with a mix of curiosity and amusement, made me think twice. I wasn't sure if I should be afraid or just confused. A murder club? I asked. Do you mean solving it? Davina didn't answer right away. It was another girl who spoke up, her voice playful, but with a hint of something darker underneath. Don't be boring, darling, she said, her lips curving into a smirk. Her name was Sophia. She was almost as popular as Davina, but with a more rebellious vibe. Where Davina wore designer clothes, Sophia always had a leather jacket and combat boots, like she was ready for a fight. Solving it, committing it, she continued. We go both ways, you know. She reached out, kissed the tip of her finger, and traced it down my face, from my lips to my chest. The gesture was so strange, so intimate, that I froze. My heart raced. I wasn't sure if I should feel flattered or terrified. What are you talking about? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Davina stepped forward then, her eyes locking onto mine. The world is full of rules, James. People like you follow them. People like us break them. The murder club is about freedom. It's about doing what others are too afraid to do. No limits. No consequences. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. Chapter 3: The First Test. I wanted to walk away. I should have walked away. But something about Davina and the others kept me there. Maybe it was the thrill of being invited into something so mysterious. Or maybe it was just plain old teenage curiosity. Whatever it was, I found myself nodding. What do you want from me? I asked. Davina's smile grew wider. We're looking for new members, James. But joining the murder club isn't easy. You have to prove you're one of us. How? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. She handed it to me. Tomorrow night, she said. Be there at midnight. This is your first test. I unfolded the paper, and my heart skipped a beat. It was an address. An address on the outskirts of town. The kind of place people went to when they didn't want to be found. What happens if I pass? I asked, trying to hide the fear creeping into my voice. Davina leaned in close, so close I could feel her breath on my neck. Then you're one of us, she whispered. And you'll never be bored again. Chapter 4: A Dangerous Choice. The rest of that day passed in a blur. I couldn't focus on anything except the note in my pocket and the words murder club echoing in my mind. Was this some kind of twisted prank? Or was it real? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had no idea what I was getting myself into. By the time I got home, I was a mess of nerves. I paced around my room, staring at the address over and over. Midnight seemed like a long way off, but the hours ticked by faster than I expected. Before I knew it, the clock read 11:30, and I had a decision to make. I could stay home, forget the whole thing, and pretend it never happened. Or I could go and find out what Davina and the others were really up to. In the end, curiosity won. I grabbed my jacket, slipped the note into my pocket, and snuck out of the house. The streets were quiet as I made my way to the address on the paper, my footsteps the only sound in the dark. When I arrived, the place looked exactly like I expected, abandoned, run down, and more than a little creepy. The building was an old warehouse, its windows broken, the paint peeling off the walls. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I approached the entrance. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. I walked through the empty halls, my footsteps echoing off the walls. And then I saw them. Davina, Sophia, and the others were standing in the center of the room, waiting for me. There was something laid out on the floor in front of them, but from where I stood, I couldn't make out what it was. "You're late," Davina said, her voice cool and detached. "Sorry," I muttered, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. "Don't be," she replied. "You're here. That's what matters." I took a few steps closer, and that's when I saw it. A body. Not a real one, thank God, but a mannequin dressed in old clothes, lying on the floor as if it had been staged for some kind of crime scene. "This is your test," Davina said, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "We want to see if you have what it takes to be one of us. You're going to stage a murder." Chapter 5: Staging a Murder. I stood frozen, staring at the mannequin lying in front of me. My heart raced, and my palms started sweating. This wasn't a joke. Davina and her group weren't just messing around, they were dead serious. The mannequin looked almost real, dressed in old clothes, with fake blood smeared across its chest. The entire setup gave me chills. Sophia grinned at me, her eyes dancing with excitement. "Come on, James. We don't have all night. Show us what you've got." I swallowed hard and looked around. The room was dimly lit by a single hanging bulb, casting eerie shadows on the walls. There were props scattered around. A fake knife, a bottle of red liquid, and other items that could be used to stage a crime scene. It was like something out of a murder mystery movie, but this was no game. Davina crossed her arms, watching me closely. "You're the detective, James. You need to make this murder believable. How would you kill someone and get away with it?" I felt a lump in my throat as I crouched down next to the mannequin, trying to think. I had never been in a situation like this before. Who had? This wasn't just about passing some weird initiation, it was about playing with the idea of murder. Real or fake, it made my skin crawl. I picked up the fake knife and stared at it. My mind was racing. If I were staging a murder, I would need to think like a criminal. But this wasn't me. I wasn't a killer. and I didn't want to be part of something so dark. Still, I couldn't shake the curiosity. What were they really after? Stab wounds, I muttered, more to myself than to anyone else. It should look like a crime of passion. Multiple stab wounds to the chest. Sophia clapped her hands in mock applause. Good start, darling. You're getting into the spirit. I felt sick to my stomach as I gently placed the fake knife on the mannequin's chest and pretended to plunge it in. Over and over, I mimicked the motion, leaving streaks of fake blood across the body. I tried to imagine what a real killer might do, but it felt wrong, so wrong. There, I said finally, standing up and wiping my hands on my jeans. That's what I would do. Davina smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was cold, calculating. Not bad for a beginner. Chapter 6, The Aftermath. I thought that would be the end of it, that I would leave, shaken but unharmed, and forget about the whole thing. But as I turned to go, Davina stepped in front of me. Not so fast, James. There's one more thing you need to do before you can leave. My heart sank. What now? She pulled a small, sleek camera out of her bag and handed it to me. We record everything, darling. The murder club is all about memories. Proof of what we've done. You need to film yourself with the body. I stared at the camera, feeling a wave of dread wash over me. Film myself. Why? Davina's smile widened. So we can trust you. Once you've recorded this, you're one of us. No turning back. This was it. The real test. It wasn't just about staging a fake murder. It was about trust and control. If I filmed myself, they would have leverage over me. I couldn't believe I had let myself get this far. But I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. Everything was happening too fast. Do it, Sophia urged, her voice soft but menacing. I hesitated, but eventually I took the camera. I pressed record, the red light flashing as I pointed it at myself and the stage scene behind me. I felt like I was crossing a line I could never uncross. There, I said, handing the camera back to Davina after a few seconds of filming. Happy now? She looked at the footage, her smile cold and triumphant. Perfect. Chapter 7, The Club's Dark Secret. Over the next few days, I couldn't get the murder club out of my head. I tried to go back to my normal life, but everything felt different now. I had crossed into a world that was dark and dangerous, and part of me couldn't help but be intrigued. But there was another part of me, one that was terrified. It wasn't just the staged murder that haunted me. It was the feeling that I was in over my head. Davina, Sophia, and the others, they weren't just bored rich kids looking for thrills. There was something more to the club, something they weren't telling me. I started to dig around, asking questions at school, trying to learn more about Davina and her group. I found out that the murder club had been around for years, passed down from one group of students to the next. But no one seemed to know exactly what they did. There were rumors, of course, stories about missing people, strange accidents, and unexplained deaths. But no one could prove anything. One night, while I was lying in bed, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it, my heart pounding in my chest. "You've done well, James. But the real fun is just beginning. See you soon. Davina."